the Jags are legit and the Jags are for real. And who would have thought wrapping up week 5, we'd be talking about a 4-1 Jacksonville Jaguars team and a 2-3 Chiefs team. I want to give all the respect to the Jags because they didn't play a pretty game last night. They didn't play a perfect game last night, but they didn't have to. And I think there's two different stories to that. They didn't have to play perfect, but they found a way to win. And that's credit to Trevor Lawrence's legs, his scramble ability. He had, 50 plus yards on the ground last night. I think we kind of saw that while Trevor Lawrence probably isn't the best passer in the National Football League, isn't the most reliable or accurate passer, he can make plays with his legs. As we saw last night, whether it comes before or after, not even with all. With a stumble, Trevor Lawrence can make plays with his legs, and that's incredibly valuable. We saw Brian Thomas probably have his best game of the season, and the fact that the Jags have gotten to 4-1 largely without Brian Thomas making a huge impact, I think makes you optimistic about what the ceiling of this team can be and how they may not have even reached it. Travis Hunter got involved in a big way last night. We're starting to see him make some breakthroughs offensively. A lot of things to really like about the Jags, even in a game that, wasn't necessarily perfect. Turned the ball over 2 times. A fumble led to a Chiefs touchdown. An interception in the 4th quarter gave the Chiefs the opportunity to tie the game up, but they still found a way to win. So credit to the Jacksonville Jaguars and that defense that simply cannot exist without getting a turnover. But Fitz, that also brings the other side. The fact that the Jags
I love you.
didn't
You were
play
so
a
positive.
perfect
It was
game.
it was so positive. I felt it
Well,
coming all the way, and then it's like, but go ahead.
But the Chiefs win this game last year. The Chiefs win these types of games in 2024. The Chiefs were 11-0 in one-score games last year. This year, the Chiefs are 0-3. Like, what happened last night doesn't happen last season. So why? Patrick Mahomes played a pretty good game. The Jags played kind of sloppy, and the Jags won. On days where Patrick Mahomes looks like Patrick Mahomes doesn't lose. But they lost last night.
Belief is a drug. Like, it's a pixie dust thing. Like, one of the things that's really interesting to me when you hear athletes say, well, we just got to learn how to win these types of games. You hear that a lot of times from bad teams trying to become good teams. I've talked to guys trying to figure that out because my whole thing is you played football your whole life. You know how to win football games. And it's just a response situation. Hey, have we survived this team, this group together? Have we gone through these weird trials to win games in weird ways? And for years, that's been exactly who the Chiefs have been. But last night, that's exactly who the Jags were. Caroline, you mentioned all the times that the Jags could have just imploded, and they didn't. They find strength through that. But in the meantime, Kansas City lost the exact type of game that Kansas City has won for the last, not just 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. I mean, we talked about the identity is you cannot beat Patrick Mahomes in a one-score game. The numbers have shown that. So as I spent all last year saying, if you can't beat him in one-score games, then the only way you beat Kansas City is if you blow them out. And it's tough to blow out Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes together. Well, this year, all of that shine is gone. And suddenly that little belief is gone from both sidelines. I think what you have right now is finally everybody looks around and says, wait, these aren't the games suddenly that Mahomes and the Chiefs win, because that's palpable on the sideline. You can feel it. Last night, great example. They scored a touchdown with about a minute to go. This game should have been over. The Chiefs had the edge in this game. It should have been over. And then what happened? An out-of-bounds kick that takes no time off the clock and gives great field possession. A great completion down the field. We watched the Chiefs get chiefed last night. And the more everybody sees that, I think the more not only does it take away some of Kansas City's sort of intrinsic subconscious belief that we win in every situation, it honestly takes that away from the team on the other sideline also. This is a wildly empowering moment where I just think what we're seeing is regression to the mean. A good football team normally, and the Kansas City Chiefs, has gotten away with winning these games. They can't get away with it now. So last night, they got chiefed. And Caroline, I think that has a long-lasting impact in the way the Chiefs see themselves this year and also the way the rest of the league sees them in a close matchup.
Yeah, I think you bring up a very good point in that belief can be a hell of a drug. That when the Chiefs started winning these close games, that's infectious. That feeling, that level of belief on the sideline doesn't matter if you're down a score with 45 seconds left on the clock. You have this sense of belief that, hey, we can do this because we've done this before. That's the kind of sense of belief that I have in Baker Mayfield and the Bucks. We talked yesterday about Baker Mayfield being the clutch king in the NFL, and that's really a crown that Patrick Mahomes gave Baker Mayfield. And I think they're starting to have that level of belief late in games and close games and one-score games in Tampa Bay. A feeling of belief that they used to have in Kansas City. Like, what happened for the Jags last night? A clunky, awkward, but, incredible heads up play by Trevor Lawrence to go ahead in the last, whatever, 30 seconds of that game, maybe even less. Like, those are the kind of, I didn't want to call them fluky because it was a play that Trevor Lawrence made, but still, I'll call it fluky anyways. Kind of fluky plays that led the Chiefs to victory in so many of those close games yesterday. So I don't ever want to, what am I saying? Of course I do. I always love to overreact. I was going to say I don't want to overreact. I love to overreact. So let's overreact. Is it panic time in Kansas City?
Why is that an overreaction? Like that's a proper react. Like, shouldn't it be panic time? You are under 500, 5 weeks into the season. You have an expectation of Super Bowls. That's what I'm sorry, but Chiefs fans, Chiefs organization, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, you expect Super Bowls every year. This does not look like a Super Bowl caliber football team. I don't think it's an overreaction right now to say that things are not going the right way for Kansas City. This Chiefs team, as cheesy as it sounds, they're finding a way to lose. Why would we not overreact to that, considering that Kansas City has a bunch of big teams left on their schedule? They are in a division that looks like it's going to be brutal this year. What are they fighting for, a wild card at this point? Is the wild card the expectation? And even if they make the wild card, do you really believe they're in the same level as where they've been in the past? Like, the standard is the standard. So the standard for the Chiefs is Super Bowls. Yeah, I'd be panicked in Kansas City.
The reason why I ask that is because over the last several weeks, when the Chiefs looked rough, we have told Chiefs fans, don't overreact. We have told everyone, if you are panicking about the Chiefs, you don't know the Chiefs. The reason why I think it's time to panic in Kansas City, why last night made the difference for me, wasn't the 13 penalties, but man, oh man, was that rough. It wasn't the very uncharacteristic Patrick Mahomes pick six deep into Jags territory, as brutal as that wasn't the one-score game that they lost for the third time this season. It was the fact for me, Fitz, that Xavier Worthy was on the field. And the reason why we told Chiefs fans not to panic was because, as stagnant as that offense had looked, we knew it was going to get better. We knew Rashee Rice was going to come back. We knew Xavier Worthy was going to come back. And in that first game in which Xavier Worthy came back, the Chiefs looked like the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes looked like Patrick Mahomes again. And we all said, see? Told ya. All it took was getting a little bit more explosiveness and speed back into this offense. A guy that can stretch the field, that makes all the difference. Well, he was on the field last night, and that didn't make all the difference for the Chiefs. And yes, you're going to get Rashee Rice back. And yes, there's a high, I'm not going to say a high likelihood, but I'll say a possibility that the Chargers, are limping down the stretch here, that their lead in the division starts to wither away, and the Chiefs can figure out a way to continue to win games. Like, yes, there's absolutely still a path where the Chiefs still win the division and the Chiefs still get home field advantage in the playoffs. But that guy right there, Xavier Worthy, was supposed to make the difference, was supposed to make a big enough difference in the Chiefs' offense looking stagnant versus not. And it didn't make all the difference last night. And that is panic time for me.
I will agree with that. I'll also say they didn't run the ball well enough last night, which, comes from the fact that maybe people aren't as scared of them throwing the football. And then the other part of it is, look, Caroline, you mentioned the penalties and the uncharacteristic mistakes. The Jags had those too. And when you just watched that game last night, I think the reason that I'm concerned for the Kansas City Chiefs is that last night, if you watch Monday Night Football, the Jags were the better team. Like, however we want to couch it on what's not right for Kansas City and why things aren't going that way, like, you can look back at it last night and say, man, the Jags tried to give that football game away a couple of different ways, a couple of different times. There were also some weird calls in that game that didn't go the Jags' way. There were plenty of reasons for the Jags to fold. At the end of the day, Jacksonville was a better football team than Kansas City. And I know that doesn't make any sense to who Kansas City's been for the last decade, but that doesn't matter in the right here, the right now. I'm panicked because I watched two teams go at it last night, and for all the mistakes that Kansas City made, they got beat by what was flat out a better football team.